still a Mopar girl today, right?
Oh my gosh, I've never driven anything else, and I probably never will. I'm happy to carry that bloodline. You know, I think Mopar has always sort of been considered the underdog, and I think that there's a lot of parallel there. But I love the product, the old and the new, for sure.
Right, and I think that sort of reputation of being the underdog has turned around a bit, I think, in the last couple of years, especially with the innovation.
I work for Lansdale Chrysler now, and it's just a wonderful time to be working in the automotive industry. The products that we're producing right now is just above and beyond. I had the opportunity back in early June to go to the Sterling Heights Ram truck assembly plant, and I was just blown away, not only by the product that they're producing, but the way that they're producing it. It's just above and beyond, and I mean, we're holding our own against these luxury brands. Our new pickup trucks are like living rooms, which is awesome.
It's true. Now, you're known as Miss Mopar in our region and probably beyond. You're on every facet of social media. How did you get that name? How did it stick?
Okay, that's sort of a funny story. When I have a degree in criminal psychology, and I went to Gwen and Mercy, so you had to do an element of Mercy Works as your final project. Right. So I had to do a fundraiser, and I had a wonderful facilitator. Her name was Dr. Rebecca Golan. She's still over there at Gwen, that allowed me to put together a car show that benefited people coming back from overseas with post-traumatic stress disorder. That was one of my areas of study. So I'm handing out flyers for these car shows. Like, I just need to get 3 cars to show up so I get an A. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I approached these 2 guys with Roadrunners. I have a 71. It's been a lifelong dream of mine to restore it. And I hand them my flyer, and they sort of like laugh a little bit. Here's this young girl like, oh, you're handing out flyers for your dad's car show? And I explained to them what I was doing. I explained that I love Mopar. And the one gentleman was like, I'll believe you love Mopar if you could tell me what engine's in that car. And I knew well enough to know it was a Hemi, and I told him that, and he sort of looked at me dumbfounded, and he said, wow, you really are like the real-life Miss Mopar. And it sort of stuck, and that was early summer. By the time that the car show rolled around, it was September 11th, people were coming in, and they were like, oh, you're Miss Mopar. And I ended up getting 75 cars to that car show, and it was a huge success, and I got an A, and I graduated
I was going to say, it resulted in an A, which is very, very important, but it also started you on a sort of almost a career of organizing a car show, and we're going to talk more about the All Mopar show a little bit later in the show. But tell me about your role at the Lansdale Auto Group, over there on 309, by the way.
Yes, Lansdale Auto Group. I'm the 4th generation to work for Lansdale Auto Group. My grandfather retired from parts. His dad worked there. My dad is currently in parts, and my uncle is a technician. So I feel like I have a little bit of bloodline there. I kind of got my job by accident. I was working in mental health at the time, and I hated it. And I went up to complain to my dad one day on my lunch break, and Jeff Hahn, the youngest of the 3 brothers that owned the business, asked if I wanted to give selling Fiats a shot. And I was like, well, what do I have to lose? So I started as the internet sales manager. I was doing what they now call BDC, a lot of the internet lead distribution, all that stuff. That role sort of grew into more of a social media role. I took on creating our social media accounts, and then fast forward 7.5 years, I'm a product specialist. I'm a Ram expert, a Uconnect expert, a Jeep expert, and I'm our Fiat sales manager, and I do our financing. So it sort of just tumbled into this huge big role, and I get to see a little bit of everything that goes on from the start to the finish of the sales process. And I love it.
And we were talking earlier that they brought in Fiat in, what year was it?
2011.
Right, because there was a niche that you needed to fill with the Dodge.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people probably remember back in, 07, 08, 09, when all the crazy economic downfall was happening, that we sort of needed saving. And Chrysler needed somebody behind them that offered what we were lacking, like luxury interiors and stuff. And I think one of the things that people notice the most since our partnership with Fiat is that we sort of picked up on all those, the aspects that we weren't really performing our best on back in the 90s and the early 2000s and stuff. So the Fiat 500, which was our first Fiat model that we sold, hit the economic fuel efficient, all those aspects.
Right.
And they did really well, and they're fun, and they have a lot of personality, and you know, not everybody wants a pickup truck or a Jeep or a muscle car, so it sort of filled the segment. And now they're just blend really well together. The Fiat brand sort of branched out into small SUVs and all-wheel drive models, and now we have the Spider, and I just think it really complements what we're selling, big pickup trucks and Jeep Wranglers and muscle cars. So there's just a little bit of something for everyone.
I asked you out in the waiting room if anybody ever came in to buy a Fiat 500 and looked over and saw, you know, a Challenger or a Charger and said, you know what, I changed my mind. I think I don't need to save fuel so much. Gas is on the downtrend, and like a muscle car, or vice versa. They come in for a muscle car.
So I find that there's a lot of crossover. I get a lot of customers who will have a pickup truck for hauling their boat, and then they'll get a little Fiat Abarth just to zip into the city.
Right. Over to Wawa.
Over to Wawa, yeah. So there's certainly people that have both, and they use them for very different reasons, but they both fit their lifestyle. One of my favorite stories to tell is actually someone that came in, was dead set on a Jeep, and she had just had back surgery, and she was looking for something that was comfortable for her to just sort of swivel in and out of.
Right.
And we had pulled up every Compass, Cherokee, Renegade, Grand Cherokee.
Yeah, not the first choice for somebody with back issues.
Yeah, and then she ended up getting in a little Fiat 500X, which actually shares the same chassis, the Renegade. And it just fit her right, the way that it was shaped and the seating and all of that good stuff. So there certainly is some crossover, and there's certainly some repeat business, you know, that people cross over between the brands, and it fits all their needs. And Fiat is such an economically friendly line that you can sort of afford to add a 500 just as your zip around car, or something that you're going to tow behind your RV, something like that.
Yeah. Well, as a point of personal preference, I like the Spider more than the Miata. Actually, the design, it tends to turn my head a lot quicker than even the new Miatas.
Absolutely. We get a lot of Miata trade-ins, you know, people that are saying the same thing. Like, I like the styling, I like the color options. They do a really sharp saddle interior, which appeals to a lot of people. And we'll have people that are like, I'm going to run down the street and drive the Miata, and we tell them that we'll see them later, and we certainly do.
That's right. It's 309 is a corridor of car dealerships, and I know people who have gone there. 5 Points, you're right there. I think it's officially Montgomeryville.
Yes. So we got our name Lansdale Chrysler because when Joe Hahn started the business, it was in downtown Lansdale, and we relocated in the early 70s because we needed more space, and back in 2010, 2011, we added the additional building.
Yeah, and kept the name. It's that's an exciting dealership, because not only are the cars exciting, the colors that are coming out now, especially with the Dodges, they really catch your eye, and it's almost too bad you're so close to the light, because I want to make that green, and yet I want to stay back and be able to look at the cars as they pass by.
I think that's one of the things I love so much about the brand. Like, I always say I was born in the wrong time. I wish I was alive during the muscle car era when Dodge was producing the Plum Crazies and the Sublimes and all that great stuff, and it's exciting for me to have the opportunity to experience it now. And I really love that they're bringing back those reminiscent feels. I mean, the Dodge Challenger, for example, I mean, if you look at it in any other facet, it's an outdated model. It matches something that came out in the 70s. But then you look at it as this exciting piece of time that we're allowed to travel back to, and it doesn't matter that it's not a beige cookie cutter car, because people need to feel that thrill that I think was alive and well in the 70s, and I thank Dodge every day for allowing me to experience that.
It really is a resurgence of the muscle car era in modern terms. My friend has a number of them, a Hellcat Challenger, which he says, and he has a lot of impressive cars. He's been on the show, and he says that one is particularly powerful. I won't use any bad words like dangerous or scary or anything like that, but it's a beast.
It absolutely is, and you know, I'm sure anything could be dangerous or scary if you let it. Yeah, if you put it in the wrong hands. But I'm excited that we have the opportunity to keep putting them out on the street. I'm excited that people are buying them. I'm excited that people are taking them to car shows and just having fun with them. I mean, that's what it's all about. Why do you want to make a $50,000 purchase that's not fun? You should love your car.
What do they say? Life's too short to drive a boring car.
Amen.
And I think your dealership really represents the fun factor, whether it's the Fiats or the Dodge cars. I have a personal affinity for Mopars because when I was growing up as a teenager in high school, I had a Pontiac Trans Am and I thought I was the king of the hill. And then my very good friend John, who's probably listening out in Vegas, bought a '68 Charger.
Oh, the most beautiful muscle car ever made.
I totally agree with you. Even maybe it's definitely in the top 5 for me. I mean, I think the Pontiac Trans Am and a couple others, but the '68 Charger, out of all the Chargers for me, is the most beautiful Mopar. Absolutely perfect. And he still has that car today, and it's like that sublime green. He painted it, and he reminds me it was a 383 that he's since bored out and put nitrous, and it's an absolute beast. And he recently bought a Viper, so he's a Mopar guy through and through. And so that's sort of by osmosis, I have become a Mopar lover, and certainly the '68 is a dream car. If money was no object.
I mean, you just look at the tail end of those things, and if they're not the most attractive tail lights, I don't know what is. It just gives me shivers every time I look at them.
I totally agree. I say that all the time. It's the best taillights of any car, period. Mm-hmm. Well, we're gonna talk more with Miss Mopar about her current projects and new purchases and all things Mopar right after these words from Car Smarts Radio.